Wait, unmute. Okay. Morning. Or you know what? I'm gonna stop saying good morning. Because
Why? It's morning.
it's not always morning for everybody.
Oh.
So hello.
Good day.
Good day. Good day. Hello. Welcome to Social Intercourse. And we have Ranji back here with us today. Vicky will pop in at some point. She's just gonna surprise us. So that'll be fun. And today's topic is going
First
to
of all,
be-
sorry I missed last week.
do you want to explain why you were missing?
Yes, because health awareness. I had to get a lovely colonoscopy, and it was my first one I've ever had, and so that was a whole vibe.
Yeah.
It was a whole thing, and my body did not like the propofol that they give you. Everybody told me it was going to be the best nap of my life. I was going to wake up and feel
sorry.
What'd you say?
I told you that too. Sorry.
Everybody did, and Rachel's sensitive to everything. So I went in excited, and I woke up feeling like I had been hit by a train, and drank a whole bottle of wine by myself, and it lasted until the next day. So, but I'm good now, and I'm glad I went. So, and I'm also glad it's over for 5 years.
Right. And everything's good and everything's clear. So that's good. Yeah. I've had colonoscopies and it's not fun, but I enjoy the propofol myself. I'm like, oh,
my stomach was so flat.
I know, right?
The next day I was like, I mean, totally not worth what I had to do to get it, but I was looking for the bright side.
Always after the bowel prep, the next morning before going in for the colonoscopy, I'm like, I am at my thinnest. Like I did my I think I did mine a month before yours, or I did mine in February. And this time I was like, someone needs to take a picture of me right now and put on a bathing suit.
You're like putting on your bathing suit.
Talking about being at our thinnest.
This is a great segue.
Yeah. Our topic today is about this book by a lady named Mireille Guiliano. I just looked at her name like 2 seconds ago. Mireille Guiliano, I think it was. And she wrote a book called French Women Don't Get Fat. And it's all about, because the French women eat less or drink a lot of water. And I didn't actually read the book. I think Vicky read the book. So she can give us her opinion on that. I actually didn't. But there is some articles that Steven sent us. Did you read it? I know I sent it to you last night.
So whatever you texted me, there was an article and then a short YouTube video. And I did review both of those last night. So I did my homework.
Well, you're better than me because I did not watch the video.
The video was short. I think the article definitely had the most information.
Yeah. So. And I don't know if I fully read the article.
It was a long article. I skimmed it.
Yeah. But I understood, context clues. And it was about how ambitious women, successful women in countries that are more wealthy are thinner. So is there pressures to be thinner to be successful? Right?
And I think at the end of the article, they came to the conclusion that it wasn't your socio-economic status that dictated your weight. It was the other way around. Was that, I think, at the end?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Mm-hmm. Which I found super interesting.
Like you're more able to attain wealth if you're thin as a woman. And it didn't really correlate with men.
Right. With men, you could be big, thin, whatever, it didn't matter.
Did I read in there in South Korea, actually heavier set men got paid even more in the workforce?
Yeah, it said that.
I was like, oh.
Yeah. So, because the wealthy can eat more and eat better and eat well, and in Korea, especially, like, show signs of robust health and wealth or something like that. But women, so that's what they were saying, that South Korean women, the more thinner you are, the more successful you are. Like in South Korea, France, US is named. And I was like, that's kind of weird, because in South Korea, everybody's skinny or everyone's thin.
Right.
Everyone's expected to be super thin. So you can be poor and thin. You could be Oh,
Sorry, I had a
it's
cough
not
in.
just me.
Reject it. It
Oh
was me
my
this
gosh.
time.
Wait, hold on. It's not just me. I'm so
That
excited.
was weird. Yeah, I guess I've never actually gotten a phone call during one of our podcasts.
Yeah, well, do not disturb. No, it doesn't matter.
Let me
Um,
change.
what was I saying? Oh yeah, you can be poor, rich, whatever. In South Korea specifically, everyone's expected to be thin. So I don't know. I think that article with that was kind of off.
Mhm.
And but even I don't know. I'm thinking nowadays in the U.S. because I don't know. I don't live in France, so I have no idea if French women really don't get fat. But I do know that the French do have a saying where you just kind of you savor every bite that you have. You eat less, and it's all about the experience and the enjoying the food. So you and tend to eat less or
So,
something.
full disclosure, I feel like I need to put this out there at the beginning. I'm going to give my opinions on this, but as a woman, I have never, fortunately, have never struggled with my weight. I've always been a small person. I think the most I've ever weighed in my life was like maybe 118 pounds when I was on birth control.
Hmm.
And so I've had a lot of other challenges and issues that I've had to deal with and overcome, but it just so happens that weight hasn't been one of them for me.
Hmm.
And so it's so interesting for me to hear the perspectives of people that are overweight and how that impacts them because I've never personally experienced that.
Hmm.
So, full disclosure, I want to put that out there. Although I do feel pressure to not let myself get overweight, I will say
Right.
that. And speaking of the French women, they savor every bite and they have smaller portions. I think the only thing that saves me, my diet is not particularly healthy. I will say that, admit that. And I try to eat some healthy things, but overall, I mean, you've lived
Mhm.
with me, Rachel.
Yeah. Oh, I used to be like, how does she eat that?
I know it's not the greatest. It never has been. I just really like bad food, sadly. And so I think the only thing that saves me is I get full really quickly. So I don't eat huge portions of this bad stuff. And I think that's my only saving grace. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it would be a real issue.
So you've been thin your whole life. If the what the article and the study says is that, if you are thin, then you're more predisposed to be more successful.
Well, my bank account begs to differ. Where's my money?
Where is your money? Come on. You should
I'm
be a
accepting
millionaire by
donations
now,
from any of our viewers.
You,
I'll
you
put
know,
my Venmo link in the comments. No, I'm kidding.
same with me. I've never, well, it's a different idea for me because when someone else looks at me, I've always been on the smaller, thinner
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
But, my doctor when I was 10 years old would have told me I was overweight. And so I had to lose weight. Told my mom that I was overweight and had
Was
to
your
lose.
doctor Korean?
He was Korean.
How did I guess? Okay. It's a little bit
But
of a different standard, I think.
but he was going by the scale of, my age group. So it was whatever scale all doctors go by.
Oh, okay.
So there was something wrong, I think, in that. Because if you looked at me, 10-year-old me, sure, I had a little,
But
chubby
gosh, you're still
cheeks.
growing.
Yeah.
And
So
you're getting, I mean, when
yeah,
you grow, it's not like a beautifully proportionate, you know what I
right.
mean? You kind
Well,
of,
that already messed me up from like, I was like, oh no, having some cheeks on me is not okay. um, so yeah, I never wanted to get overweight or have a doctor tell me I'm overweight ever again. But I love to eat. Food is, you've seen how I eat.
I do.
I
And cook.
eat
And I love to eat what you cook.
I eat a lot of food, but I eat a lot of healthy food.
You
Um,
eat really healthy, really
uh,
healthy.
but I try to balance it because then I'll eat healthy, and then I'll be like, okay, I eat a lot of junk today because I ate healthy.
Okay, but what's your idea of junk? Because I've seen you eat, and I feel like your idea of junk is like tater tots or something.
It is. I was gonna say tater tots.
I eat those on a regular Tuesday with like my meat and
Well,
veggies.
it's processed
I think that's healthy.
we need to talk about what
I need help. I'm not the best cook.
it's interesting to me because yeah, again, so my whole life I have chronic illness. So there was times where I was super, super thin. And I don't know how I could be successful being that thin because I had no energy. I had no
Right.
motivation. I had
Right.
no, it was, I was just like, I'm just surviving. I'm
If
just,
I don't eat, I'm in a horrible mood. If I restrict my calories too much or skip meals, I'm not, I would have no friends. I mean, I'm not a nice person. I can't, um, I have no resiliency. Everything's a big deal. I get stressed out by everything. Yeah, I have no energy. When I had to do that colon prep for my colonoscopy or bowel prep, I was just laid around because I
yeah,
couldn't
well,
eat
I mean,
anything.
dehydration and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and we had talked about this before when I talked to you about the subject, and we were talking about how you had made a very interesting point about ambitious women. They just have more something innate in them, maybe that drives them to get up and wake up and go work out or do something um, to keep themselves thinner and healthy.
Yeah, I think it may be. So, if we're going to kind of go down this road of drawing the correlation that thinner women are more successful and earn more money out there in the workforce, I don't, I hesitate to say that it's just because they're thin. There's so many factors that come into play, right? And I think if we
Mhm.
try to extrapolate a single thing, we get kind of we can kind of get a little bit off base. It makes me wonder if it's not the personality trait, that same personality trait, like you said, that makes them ambitious and want to go out and go above and beyond and really push for the things that they want. And they have that like drive and dedication. And because we're women and we're expected, unfortunately, by
Mhm.
society to be thin, um, they just take that same drive and apply it to managing their weight and their lifestyle habits.
Right.
That's what I think. Maybe.
Well, I was also thinking about just where in where how do you measure success, first of all? And where are these women that are thinner thriving in the workforce? Is it corporate world? Is it because
Interesting.
entertainers, especially nowadays, you don't have to be thin to be successful as an entertainer. Um, you can
Getting
be,
better, not anymore.
yeah, because we have,
Although I think they still feel the pressure to, you know, be
yeah,
their best
because
self or however you want to say it.
um, there's a lot of actresses, or no, not all. I can't think of her name. Rebel Wilson, is that her name?
Uh-huh.
Rebel Wilson.
Yeah.
She's lost a lot of weight. Adele lost a lot of
I
weight,
was just going to say Adele. Hmm.
but they're still not. I don't know. Are they super like what is thin?
Right.
To me, they look good. They look healthy, but they looked fine before too, and they were successful.
And
So
is super thin even in the society? It's still even the pinnacle of,
I don't think
because I feel like now, I mean, I'm over here and I'm trying to do exercises to like boost up my butt,
so.
and if he seems like a little bit curvier now
Yeah,
is,
it
or a
definitely is.
lot curvier. I mean, you see these girls and they have tiny waists and these big butts, and I'm just like
Now
looking back here like, what am
another
I gonna do?
unattainable thing. It went from like wayfish skinny to like tiny waist and big butt, and I'm just like, I that is something I can never attain.
I don't think I'll ever be built that,
But
like that.
I think a
With
lot of
all
people
the hours in
know
the gym in
that.
the world,
Yeah, it's more about being fit now. It's like there's a fitness to it aspect, and
which is a lot healthier, thank
Mhm.
God.
A lot healthier, but still, again, for some people, it's like, how attainable is it? Because to be, again, if you're on a lower pay grade, or if you're just struggling and you're living paycheck to paycheck, you don't really have time to go work out. You don't really have time to set aside to go to the gym or eat healthy. And I know the article talked about that whole like, is being poor, you can't eat as healthy, and it's not true because you could still get I'm gonna so I've had, let's say I had a broccoli. I used to eat just like a head of steamed broccoli for dinner because it's so delicious. But this is the thing, I would go get my
I
head
want
of
to like it.
broccoli.
I want to like it so badly.
I would go to a farmer's market, and it was the most expensive head of broccoli I would get. But there was such a sweetness to it. And this is when I could afford whatever I wanted. I never really thought about my food costs, and I would just I want whatever is best for my body, the healthiest. I was working a lot, but I wasn't working out because I was working too much and I was in a lot of chronic illness pain. But I was eating very well, working a lot, and I would say pretty successful in what I was doing. And then I've also been on the other end currently as we speak, where I get, not the best looking broccoli in the world. It may not be organic, but it's food and it's healthy. And I'm like, where's the sweetness? Where is I'm not as excited to eat this broccoli as I was with the overpriced broccoli. So, it's like there's excitement with the type of same food, different scale on the what is the word?
It's just more
Expense?
appealing.
Yeah. So the more expensive, like
I,
produce, something fresh, it does taste better.
and
So
one thing that article was saying that I thought was pretty interesting and a good point was it's not just that you can't afford the more expensive organic,
mhm,
broccoli at the farmer's market if you're struggling economically. It's more that those lower paying jobs, you don't have as much flexibility as they called it the laptop class,
mhm,
which is funny. And it's true. So, my job, I'm medical sales right now, and I have a lot of flexibility in my day. Um, but if I were clocking in and clocking out of somewhere, that's
yeah,
gone. So, I could see where that would make a difference. And um, I think this is something you and I talked about too, Rach, is when you are struggling for money and you don't have a lot of disposable income to go have fun and do stuff and enjoy life, you're working all the time, just trying to keep your house clean, and maybe you have kids and you're trying to keep
mhm,
them taken care of. I think time just gets away from you during the day, and you don't have time to cook food from scratch. It's so much easier to make something out of a box, and you're exhausted. You
right.
can't make it to the gym, and so it's not that you can't afford the food necessarily, although for some people it might be that, but it's just your lifestyle doesn't, you don't have the
Mhm,
hours in the day or the energy to do it. And also when you're struggling that way, and you don't have a lot of time or disposable income to go do fun things. I don't know about you, but I've been there where I've been struggling with money before, and I'm just really excited about my food. Like, it's a main thing in the forefront of my mind.
mhm,
Like, what am I going to have for dinner? What am I going to have for lunch? Because that, we're obviously genetically predisposed
right.
to enjoy our food so that we want to eat so we stay alive. And like, that's the one thing that you don't want to eat a head of broccoli when that's the one thing you look forward to during the day. It's just really hard to have that
Tater
discipline,
tots.
because it's like the one thing.
Right. Oh, I get that. For me, it's I want that head of broccoli.
I, I, I would.
I have weird taste buds, but I also love tater tots. French fries are my favorite. So on a hard day, I'm just like, oh, I just want French fries. That's my go-to. And getting off the food, I always also was thinking, who dictates kind of in the work world, who gets hired. It's men. A lot of the times it was. Men hired women for corporate world. And I I helped a lot in hiring people too in the
Yeah.
work I've done. And I have had male employers make comments about certain candidates for jobs. And I mean, like, that has, they commented on appearance and weight. And I'm like, I don't,
For a
what?
job, it makes me angry, Rachel, because there are so many worse things a person can be besides fat. And I hate to even use the word fat, overweight, like, but just to make it, to make my point very bluntly, like, that's not the worst thing in the world.
Right.
But yet it's, and
So
we all
that's
have our
what I'm saying.
issues.
We all do. Yeah.
And so, I mean, we all bring our own brand of shit to the table, right? But the unfortunate thing is, most people's issues, you can kind of, it's not so readily apparent when somebody first looks at you, right? Like if I have a little bit of insecurity, or I have trust issues, or I, have discipline issues with sitting down and doing my administrative work, which I do, um, that I need to do, um, that's not readily apparent in a job interview.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, if you're overweight, it's so unfair, because that's front and center. If that's something that you are struggling with, people automatically equate that with, oh, you don't have the discipline,
Right.
um, or
Well,
self-love, or you're
it's
depressed, or whatever,
those
and they
were things
extrapolate all these things.
those
Yeah.
were exact things that my male employers have said, that they don't have the discipline, so how are they supposed to, and I was like, "Well, I don't always have the best
And
discipline."
meanwhile, if you could see my kitchen right now, it's a total disaster. And if you could see that on a job interview, you'd be like, ooh, she may not have the discipline we need. But
Mhm.
you don't see that stuff. And you can see a person's weight. And it's
Right.
just,
So,
it's,
I mean, if you see what that woman was saying, or whatever graphs we were shown about the rich, wealthy countries, women ambitious or more successful women are thinner. Well, if you look at who's hiring them, yeah, it's a lot of men hiring women, unfortunately. But I do see that as more women are in the workforce and getting
yeah,
better positions and they're doing the hiring, it's less so now. I think times are changing for the better.
I do too.
Even my my old position, someone else took over because I had to move on to a different place, and it was a female employer at that point who hired. This is completely different from the male bosses that I had. It's a different job. It was a female employer, and she went by talent, work, the resume, everything. And so the person who replaced me is not thin, and they are so much better than I was. So
It's not a fair
yeah.
assessment at all. And yet it's still
Mhm.
made. And like I said, I'm speaking to this subject with no real um, personal experience of that kind of, um, you know, let me just say this. It was interesting. I was recently shopping with a friend who hasn't been happy with her weight in a while. And I hate it when I walk into the store and the sales people are immediately kind of like converging on you, and they're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
hey, can I help you? What are you looking for?" And I'm just like, "Oh God, like I just wanna slither in and kind of look at some things and be under the radar, right? And I'll come to you if I need help." And I mentioned something about that, like, oh gosh, I wish, I'm going in there, I've got my hat pulled down, I'm not making eye contact with anybody. There's nothing about my energy that is open and says, hey, approach me, I'd like to chat. Right. And yet they would still come up to me. And my friend said they don't greet heavier people that way. Like if you're heavier, they ignore you. And I was like, that can't be true.
Mhm.
That can't be true. Why? I mean, my money, their money spends just as much as mine, like well as mine. It's the same. Like, why would But these are things that it's so eye-opening to me because I didn't realize that all these little nuances, I mean, it really affects everything in your life, apparently.
Yeah. No, it really does. And
And
again, but why are we dictated on appearance of how we should live our lives? Because again, the article said men, it does not matter. The more
it drives me
overweight
crazy.
you are, maybe, I don't know. So
When
it's
we first
been, yeah, it's just goes back to the whole like putting women down,
double standard.
double standard, but it's all yeah, you keep women down. It's well, you have to stay this certain way to be successful. Bullshit.
Yeah,
Bullshit. Especially
I
because I know a lot of women in corporate world right now, very successful jobs, and they once they started working, they gained a lot of weight because
you have
they
no time.
they have no time. In they're sitting at a desk all day long, a lot of overtime hours. So they don't even have time to eat properly. Um, their posh, wonderful corporate firms give great cafeteria food, which they have no time to go eat. And so it's my one friend said she goes to drive through, quickly get something at like 10 p.m. at night, and then goes to sleep. So
That's funny how it comes full circle because suddenly now they have the same challenges as the people that are living paycheck to paycheck and working
right.
lower income jobs.
Yeah. And so so now that it's kind of like once they're hired, do they have to maintain that fitness too? Or because yeah, a lot of the corporate jobs, they have those health plans for their employees saying, we'll give you extra something if you go work out in the gym, or there's
Yeah.
some kind of
Yeah.
benefit that
Oh,
they get.
yeah.
But it's like they have no time for it.
Right.
No time. And the men who are in the workforce, who are in the corporate jobs, again, they can gain weight, they can do whatever they want, and it's okay. But to the women, they get the looks, kind of like the comments. Oh, you're gaining some weight.
The person that I initially thought of when you told me that you wanted to do the podcast on this topic, Rach, was Oprah.
Hmm.
I don't think we can have this podcast without talking about her because look how freaking successful that woman has been. I mean, queen of everything.
Right.
And yet, the one thing she struggles with is her weight. Maybe not the one thing. We all have more than one
Yeah.
struggle, but her weight, and we've watched her and her show over the years, so many
Mhm.
years, and she's done different things to try to get her weight under control, and she's never able to maintain them, and no one would dare accuse her of not being motivated or
Right.
disciplined or any of those
Or
things.
ambitious.
Yeah. So it's a bunch of shit. But do you think it's just when you go into a job interview, you've got all these candidates and you're just looking for anything to weed people out?
Yeah, yes, but why wait? Like, I mean, the whole correlation of like, okay, they're not thin, so they're lazy. They're not.
But they could be on
Like
medication. They could, their hormones. I mean, it could be.
well, that's the other thing. Sometimes some people are just genetically more big boned
My
or
mother.
bigger.
My
So,
mother is a robust woman of German descent.
mhm,
And if she starved herself, she would never be built like me. I took after my Indian side of the family where they were all really, smaller framed. Um, and if she did starve herself to be that thin, it would look awful
mhm.
on her. She would look like a walking skeleton. So
Yeah, and again, I'm just curious what thin is in people's eyes, because I see some women and I'm like, oh, they're thin, and somebody else will comment, oh no, she's thick. I'm like, she got some curves, sure, but she's thin to
I
me.
spoke to someone recently and they said that um, the standard for being thin in South Korea is pretty brutal for
Well,
women.
it's super brutal. Yeah. Their ideal weight range for a female is like 92 pounds to 98 pounds or 97 pounds. Doesn't matter what height you are.
I was gonna ask, what height is that?
Doesn't matter. You just better be in that range of weight. Now, again, I can never get to like a 90. I'm 5'1", so you'd think I could get to 90. No, it's so dangerous and it's unattainable to me.
You would
My
feel
sister,
right.
my sister would say that I'm bigger boned than her. So,
You are not bigger boned in any
well,
way, shape, or form. But
compared to my mom and my sister, I have thicker, sturdier bones. And
where are they?
my bones in general is just thicker.
I don't
So
know about that.
I have gotten down to 97 pounds, but that was because it was again due to my chronic illness. I couldn't eat. It
That sounds
wasn't,
like what a child weighs to
yeah.
me. Like,
Well, it was terrible. I was on a liquid diet and I couldn't keep anything. And my friends everyone was worried. They're like, "Are you okay? You look like you're gonna like pass out or like knock you over." And I was like, "I'm not okay. I'm still trying to figure out my health." But in like weirdly in my mind, I was like, "Ooh, I'm 97 pounds. Never been this small in my life."
there's a little bit of like satisfaction there, kind
Yeah.
of like, oh, here I'm here. I've attained this goal.
And again, like growing up with the doctor telling me that I was overweight at 10, I've always had issues around weight. I've had issues with um, eating, even though I love food. So it was a weird thing to me. But then, because it had to do with my health, it's like, yeah, I can see how this being 97 pounds at 5'1" was difficult. How is it okay for some of these women? Because I think the average height in South Korea is like 5'3", 5'4".
Is it that tall?
I think it's 5'3". Yeah.
That's what I am. I'm
So
5'2.5", but I lie.
I like to say I'm 5'1 1/4", but but I can't imagine being 5'3" and 97 pounds and having energy and
It just makes
being,
me sad when I'm hearing you talk about that. It just makes me so incredibly sad
well,
because I
the
have so much empathy. This may not be my main life struggle, but gosh, I struggled with other things and I know what it's like to struggle with things. And I have so much empathy and I want things to be different.
yeah. Now, I'm trying to think. The only thing that I could possibly think is okay to be ambitious and going towards our goal and staying thin for is athletes. But that too is like athletes, you need muscle mass. You need some,
So they're not going for, yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe this is
but they're
maybe
thin.
erroneous,
They're
but
on the
maybe they're
gym.
not. They're going for the performance aspect
Mhm.
more, and the other is sort of just a byproduct of, right? Like
Right.
all the training that they have to do to actually perform their sport.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. That correlation for ambition and staying thin and being successful, okay, sure. That's their
In my mind, I'm thinking about those ice skaters, those partner where the guy has to like flip them in the air and do all of this, like probably have to watch their weight or
Mhm.
their partner would probably not appreciate that.
Yeah.
So
But
maybe like
so
that.
in that, I think it's fair because it's both male and females. Anyone who's in the sport needs to maintain something to be successful.
Mhm.
But yeah, again, in regular, just whatever job you're doing, I don't know. I think it's unnecessary. There are jobs that aren't in the corporate world where, again, I was hiring for where they're working with children, and I've had people comment, "Do you think they can, keep up with the kids? You
Can they
know,
run
can they run
kids
with them? Can they?"
because of the extra weight they're
Right.
carrying?
And I'm like, uh, yeah, they seem pretty strong to me. They're not. it- I don't know what they were thinking in their mind, but when I saw that the females, they were just thicker. they weren't obese, they weren't huffing and puffing after every step. I'm just like, they seem fine to me. And yeah, I think they can run after and chase after kids and pick them up and
I mean, I think health has different faces.
mhm,
Health, being healthy and being able to run after kids or do this or that, it doesn't look one way. And I don't know why people are taking this one idea and just blanketing everybody with it, because like we talked about before, my mother's ideal health and ideal weight wouldn't be someone else's, and mine definitely wouldn't be someone else's. And I don't understand why it has to be so applied across the board like that.
so here's my takeaway from the whole thing is who gives a fuck? You know what? Be confident. And if someone doesn't want to hire you because you're not, the ideal weight of what they think, then
It's
start your
not the right
own
place
company.
for
Yeah.
you. You're just like, I'm out.
Goodbye. I will be
Right.
successful on your own because that's where we're headed towards, anyways. Women are coming in all shapes and forms and sizes in the work uh, force and being successful at what they do. So I'm
And
glad.
advertisers and companies are starting to jump on board with the body
Mhm.
inclusivity
Yeah,
um, thing. I mean, we're seeing mannequins in the stores now that have bigger frames, and they're not these like stick
right.
thin, little. And I think it's moving in the right
Yeah.
direction. And some people would argue, what do you think about this? Some people would argue, oh, you're not promoting health. You're promoting an unhealthy
But who
lifestyle.
says, but again, being super skinny is unhealthy.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
zero nutrition in my body. It was bad. I was passing out.
Yeah.
So, no, there is a fine line. If you are eating healthy, but you are still a little thicker, that's just your genetic body makeup.
Yeah.
You're still healthy. So, I think me at my thinnest was unhealthier than a friend of mine who was bigger.
Right.
He was much healthier than I was.
Right.
She exercised, she worked out, she ate well, she went and got fresh air and went hiking, did outdoor stuff, and I could barely get out of bed because I had like no weight on me, no fat on me, anything. So
I think my kind of concluding idea is, if you're overweight, just go in, have the interview, be confident in who you are.
mhm.
If that person can't look past, see what you're bringing to the table, um, uh, yeah, like you said before, it's just not the right fit for you,
Yeah.
and
I mean, like I said,
fine.
you can start your own company. Go for it. Do it. Women are doing many, many things nowadays. So we're gonna we don't
Yeah,
need to be told that you have to be thin to be successful. Because it's not true. I don't think it's true. So
I don't either.
I hope this was interesting for everybody else as it was for me. So
I'd love to read some comments,
yeah. So people
what people think
leave
about this, what
comments
your
and tell
opinion
us.
is. And
Yeah.
if you've been impacted by this issue yourself, I would love to know more about kind of how that looks
Right.
and what you're going through.
Tell us a story if someone said, "No, you're not hired." Well, I don't know if they would actually tell it to your face, but let us know in the comments. And please like and subscribe and join us in the after show. And we will see you next week.
Bye, guys.